Yeah, I just wanted to really talk to you today about Birmingham Airport and rather than kind of focusing as such on the travel plan that we've kind of got in place and we're developing at the moment, give you a little bit more of the bigger picture effectively. So to work out where we've come from and where we're going to and what we're doing. For those of you who haven't been to the terminal in the last kind of 12 months or so, you'll see the new branding that we've currently got. We're the 7th largest airport in the UK, around 8.6 million passengers and 6,500 employees on site, with another about 2,000 people that are directly employed kind of in activities in relation to the airport. As you can see at the bottom, we've got 143 on-site organisations, and I've only actually been in post for the last 6 weeks. So I'm in the process of trying to engage with those all individually at the moment, and it's a little bit like doing a travel plan for each and every one, because unfortunately there hasn't been that much kind of direct engagement over the last few years. I know on the kind of agenda it had got about freight and passenger marrying kind of the two up, so I thought it'd be quite useful to give you a little bit of an indication of where we've come from. As you can see, back in 1996, nearly 80% of our market was scheduled services. That was predominantly due to the fact we'd got British Airways at the time, and they kind of were really the dominant airline we had. We only had 2% of freight movements, and again, kind of a small percentage of charter and low-cost services. That mix has completely changed in 2010. The schedule market has kind of shrunk quite significantly. But that's probably in terms of looking at the likes of Flybe becoming more of a hybrid carrier rather than a full-cost scheduled carrier. And also we've got things like now scheduled is our fastest growing market, with kind of KLM and Lufthansa significantly increasing. Cargo is only up to 4% in terms of flights. That's pretty much down to the fact we've got a night flying policy that restricts the number of overnight services that we can operate. I know we're working kind of with Centro at the moment on bits and pieces to do with cargo, but it's not really an area that we see kind of massive growth. And again, we've kind of got our low cost and our charter markets as well. Birmingham Airport, we're quite literally expanding. We're in the process of tendering for the runway extension. So that will give us effectively another 400 metres of tarmac, which will give us 2,500 miles of extra range. So it means we're also expanding our horizons. We're not necessarily just looking at services to the east coast of America, so New York and out to Dubai. We'll be looking at going out to the Far East, so Beijing, Shanghai, Singapore, Hong Kong, and right across to Vancouver and Los Angeles in the other direction. So things like Chicago, which we did used to operate, we can't at the moment. Well, that's basically been pulled, but the main reason that was pulled wasn't due to lack of demand. It was down to the fact there was payload restrictions on the service and it didn't make it economically viable. So again, when you think we've got, I think, a £68 billion worth of kind of the economy of the West Midlands, it's really important for us to try and kind of do whatever we can to link our kind of region into a wider area. We say we're a first-class airport, hopefully working for a world-class city, and we say we're in a perfect location for that. We're in the heart of the UK motorway and rail network. We're only 70 minutes from London by train at the moment, and we've got a catchment area of 8 million passengers within 60 minutes of the airports. We know at the moment we only actually cater for about 40% of our market. The vast majority of those either go to Manchester or down to London. So again, having the runway extension will hopefully allow us to claw back some of that and actually start serving our own market and keep people in kind of the Midlands. You can see there we used to have 9 million passengers when this slide was put together. We've only dropped down 400,000 since the recession. So and you can look at airports such as Stansted, which have dropped to 5 million passengers in the same period. We aren't doing too bad, and that's probably down to the mix of different types of operations we do operate. We're a modern thinking second city. We are the second city in the UK, so not like our smaller neighbour, otherwise known as Manchester. And sorry to anyone from Manchester. And we are exploring the worlds of different opportunities. Without doing anything at the moment, we could have effectively a doubling of passenger capacity, well, doubling of passengers with the capacity we've already got. And we've got, as part of our agreed master plan, we can go up to 27.2 million passengers by 2030. So me as the person who's responsible for delivering the service access strategy for the airport, it's great we've got the facilities on site to do it, but on the other hand we need to get those passengers to the airport. So that's going to be my challenge over the coming years. You might wonder why I've got commercial facilities up there, but I thought it'd be quite a good plug that if anyone hasn't got their Christmas presents yet, the duty-free sale starts today at the NEC, running right through until Sunday. So 9 o'clock this morning till 9 p.m. Today, so if anyone's got any Christmas presents or perfume they want to go and buy or aftershave, make your way down to the NEC. In terms of current modes of travel, we've got an awful lot of different ways and means into the airport and things that we do to promote that. We've obviously got Birmingham International Station, which is a hop, skip and a trip on an Air Rail Link service to reach kind of mainland rail services. We're working closely with National Express in terms of on-site bus services and also coach, and that's something we really want to try and develop over the coming months and years. Promote walking and cycling, etc. to staff, but we also know that car parking is a huge draw in terms of getting people on site, and especially from a commercial point. I'm sure Sarah will remember from her days at the airport that there'll be some arguments with commercial over me trying to get people out of their cars. But on the other hand, it's very much a case of saying that we've got kind of effectively a hierarchy of travel. Obviously we want people to walk, cycle and use public transport where we can, but we also would prefer people to actually come and park on site for a fortnight than we would get their friends and family to drop them off with taxis. It's 4 journeys down to 2. Also in the discussions that I've been having with various kind of companies since I've started, one organisation is spending £500 a week, sorry, on taxis for their staff starting and finishing at 4 o'clock in the morning. So straight away that highlights having bus services that don't get into the airport until 4:30 in the morning is a massive issue for us, and that's something, again, I'm sure we'll be discussing with the powers that be. As I've already said, traditionally there's been kind of probably a natural growth in the way the airport has kind of attached itself to promoting sustainable travel. As part of the runway extension agreed Section 106 agreements, by next year we've got to have at least 25% of passengers and staff arriving on site in sustainable modes. At the moment I think it's 25.6% of passengers from the 2010 CAA data, so we're sort of already there just about. But that's got to go to 37% by the time we get to 27 million passengers or 2030. So it's again a huge way to go, especially when you think we have very little control on outside kind of access. So it's very much me working with employees, passengers, airlines and key stakeholders to work on persuading them to use different modes of travel. So we know there's kind of a world out there for the future and we're preparing for it too. Really exciting about things like the West Coast Rail franchise when that's launched in 2012. The figure about 59 minutes down to London. We're at 70 minutes now, and if anyone is lucky enough to listen to our Head of Government and Industry Affairs, he will waive his 1974 timetable, which says after £10 billion of investment on the West Coast mainline, how are we only still travelling to London 6 minutes quicker than we were in the 70s? Is that really good enough? I'll let you ask that one to the Network Rail and people. What we want to try and do is working with integrated ticketing and again making sure that passengers get on a flight in Cologne and make their way to London via Birmingham on one ticket rather than at the moment having different segments. So things like that, trying to work with our passengers in the rail industry to try and create something that works. Hopefully at some point we'll have the metro that will be making its way down into the airport. Keep our fingers crossed. And from that point, this particular slide here shows what it'll be like when the runway extension happens. We can also see just where the original A45 currently is. It'll be making a bit of a diversion around the end of the runway. Initially that will have a bus corridor in it, but it will also be there kind of putting the foundations in place for if and when Metro does make its appearance. And longer term things, again, we're starting to look at now, and this is a much longer thing, things like PRT, like they've got down at Heathrow, again linking in where Red, the airport terminal, into the station, the blue for the wider NEC, and also I don't probably need to tell you that the green is for the potential High Speed 2 station. And that is something that we're really, really excited about and very much in support of. The opportunity of going down to London in 31 minutes by 2025 would be a complete game changer for us as a business. And on that point, we see ourselves very much as part of the solution to Heathrow's problem of capacity. And I'm sure it won't be long before you start hearing us calling ourselves at London's 7th runway. Now, apologies to Boris on this one. You'll see my flashing map. Effectively, 31 minutes would effectively put Birmingham International's high-speed station, the equivalent of Edgware in London. It would put us into the zone 4 of the underground map. Now, that would be brilliant if that actually happens, and you think from the economy, house prices, etc., and also accessibility, it would be absolutely fabulous for the West Midlands. Is that going to be an option at some point in the future? Fingers crossed. Right, there's also a slightly bigger picture to this, and not just Birmingham Airport. We've got to look at the political implications of Heathrow and the South East and aviation generally. I know CLT are obviously working with aviation on a regular basis, so I'm sure you'll probably know some of this already. But again, as the Chancellor confirmed in his autumn statement yesterday, Heathrow Runway 3 is definitely not going to be happening, or not in the next few years at least. Things like the review of government aviation policy and things like how South East airports operate, again, that will be, when that comes out in 2013, will be quite a big difference. Things like taxation as well. Is there opportunities to actually start taxing busier airports and actually force that capacity to be released elsewhere? Boris Island, I see, wasn't actually thrown out yesterday. It is still on potentially the cards. We're saying, why spend £60 billion on a new airport in the South East, which will actually serve more of the Dutch population than it will of our own population? And I don't see too many people from the South East complaining about the fact we're going to spend £60 billion in the South East, potentially. Why not link that up to high-speed rail lines to the whole of our existing airport facilities and actually do something that, again, fits into the government's policy of kind of promoting growth and economic activity across the whole of the UK and not just in one particular region. One of the big things, if you see someone from the South East, someone like Willie Walsh popping up and saying why we need more capacity in London, is spare capacity. Let me tell you, at the moment we've got 100 million passengers equivalent spare capacity in our existing systems without building another runway, another terminal, anything. Virtually the equivalent of Heathrow and Gatwick already there. The only problem with that is surface access in terms of getting people to those. So as transport professionals and an awful lot of consultants is sitting in here, let's actually try and work to deliver something that actually brings and links those airports together. The other issue we also have, we're told people want to fly into London. Well, we already know the vast majority of flights into London, the final leg of the journey is by train. So it doesn't really matter if you fly into London Heathrow or London Birmingham, potentially, and get the final leg on the train, especially with 31 minutes or 59 minutes potentially under the West Coast Mainline franchise. We already know it's quicker to fly from Charles de Gaulle into Birmingham and down into London by train than it is to go via Heathrow. So it's already there in certain things, but we need to get out that message and promote the options that are already out there with kind of plane to journey time city centres. To kind of pretty much summarise, as Birmingham Airport, we need to start working an awful lot more closely, and we are doing so in terms of with our passengers and our employees, hence why I'm standing here today and why I've been employed at the airport. We need to promote sustainable travel, we need to create a sustainable airport, and we also need to work together with our partners, our airlines, Centro, the wider kind of business community to promote a sustainable future for us as Birmingham Airport. We see an integrated transport solution, whether or not that's plane, trains, cars, bikes, buses, whatever. And we need to work together to do that. We really hope that you'll be with us as we go along. So thanks very much for listening. And if anyone's got any questions, happy to take them. Thanks.